There are few people as aware of their bodies as dancers are. We met someone who took her experience with dance and created a business out of helping others become aware of their possibly awkward body language. We'd like to introduce you to
Rachel Cossar, co-founder and CEO at Virtual Sapiens.
Virtual Sapiens is a Chrome extension that uses AI and machine learning to provide real-time coaching for remote video meetings so people can improve their nonverbal communication.
So Virtual Sapiens is very much an evolution of the work that I was doing very much live, in person, either through one-on-one coaching or in a workshop setting before the pandemic. And Virtual Sapiens is really taking that to a more democratized level in the sense that we leverage AI and the fact that people are on video more frequently to provide access to this kind of coaching, which typically was pretty hard to get at a personal level.
This isn't the first time that Rachel has brought body awareness into a business idea. It started with in-person consulting, but her desire to reach as many people as she could drove her to develop a scalable solution that anyone can access at any time.
I really pushed choreography for business for a few years, and did workshops with people and in companies all over the world, really. But I always was struck by how unfortunate it was that I had to be in the room, or a coach had to be in the room. And in order to really be effective, the room had to be filled with only a certain number of people. You could have a really inspiring keynote, that could be amazing, absolutely. But in terms of actual coaching and workshopping, the problem of scale was always on my mind. And when the pandemic struck, that's when I finally saw this opportunity of, okay, now these conversations are happening on video.
So how does your dancing experience make you uniquely attuned to something like a video call?
I noticed that actually a lot of what I'd learned as a dancer kept coming up in even internal meetings, or the way that I would analyze people's presentations, performance psychology, being able to perform under pressure, and really understanding the power of our physicality as humans when it comes to communicating a very complex message with the way that they're holding their posture, the way that they're not using their hands, or any variety of kind of nonverbal asset class in communication. And you can communicate all of the emotional nuance from the way that you move your body and the way that you use your voice.
Well, what mistakes do you see people making in their remote calls, and how can we do better?
I think everyone at this point is sick of hearing, well, your lighting has to be good and your framing has to be good and make sure you have a clean background. But actually, from a nonverbal perspective, those three things are so important that it is worth mentioning them again. Because if you're thinking about the first impression, right? Typically, if you were in person, you would walk into a room, you would shake someone's hand, you would make direct eye contact. You just want to be very intentional about these things, because in that moment, you have the option to show up as someone who has clearly prepared, who respects the time of the other person on the other end, who is an updated professional, and who knows exactly how to show up in a way that represents and reflects their brand on video. Or you can say, well, it doesn't really matter, because what matters is what's going to come out of my mouth, at which point you've already left a lot on the table in terms of your credibility. We always have to be keeping the audience's perspective in our mind and showing them as direct a connection to ourselves. There is a huge debate waging right now around, should we have videos on? Should we have videos off? The conversation, unfortunately, tends to go into the extremes of all or nothing, right? Either we're a video off culture and no one ever uses their video ever, or if we're on video, if we're doing a meeting, it better be video, always, right? And neither one of those are correct, because they're missing the point, which is communication differs based on context.
She's right. Harvard Business Review partnered with Broadpath to perform a study on how the use of webcams affected participants' fatigue throughout the workday. The results called a lot of attention to the same point Rachel is making. Communication can be different for a lot of people.
The question that really needs to be asked is not video on or video off, but what is this communication event? Should it be an email? Should it be an asynchronous document sharing? Does it need the benefit of the full spectrum of communication, including body language, in which case, unless we're going to meet in person and take all that time, absolutely it should be a video meeting, or can it be a phone call, right? Like, we need to have the conversations. Having a knee-jerk reaction to always have your video on in any meeting is also not the answer, right? And so it's like, what is the context? What is the goal? What do we need to see in order to be effective? I've heard a lot of, if it's a client meeting, we'll do video. If it's an internal meeting, we do video off. And even that, I'm like, well, why is it that your internal meetings are considered less important, and therefore you're not giving the employees or the team members the benefit of seeing whoever it is that they're dealing with? So it's a broader conversation. There's a lot of nuance in it. I think there's also a ton of opportunity to redefine best practices in this space. So I just hope people lean into that and don't make kind of standardized statements, like blanket statements.